Hello there everyone and welcome back to The Lovely Grind. My name is Michael Preby and my website's lovelygrind.com. It's where you can find information about my coaching, courses, and membership areas, so I hope you'll come over to that website and find a way to connect with me further. And I welcome you back to my YouTube channel and to today's video, which is going to talk about one of the big common fears in withdrawal, what I'll call the fourth fear, because previously I've outlined three others. So that's what I'm going to talk about. To recap my story, I was on Paxil and Xanax, an antidepressant, and a benzodiazepine medication because of anxiety. Like many people, I was put on those meds because of anxiety, panic attacks that I was experiencing going through some stressful times as a young man in college. And like many people, I didn't really revisit the topic of these medications and their place in my life for a long time. So I took them for over a dozen years until I decided around my mid-30s to get off these medications. And while that process was difficult and came with withdrawal symptoms for me that were somewhat drawn out, protracted, I was able to get off those medications, eventually feel better, find healing, and that's why I make these videos, to share that hope with all of you who might still be going through some sort of withdrawal process out there that involves symptoms and a whole lot of confusion. And one of the symptoms that a lot of people experience in withdrawal, I would say everybody, is increased fear. And so there are maybe some fears that are individual to us, but there's also some fears that I've discovered in the course of my coaching to be very common to everyone going through withdrawal. And so a while back, I made a video on the three big fears in withdrawal. And they're like this. Am I dying? Am I losing my mind? Is this permanent? And I experienced all those fears myself, because those are the fear-based questions we ask ourselves and indeed ruminate on when we're going through these symptoms that are so bizarre, so disruptive. First, we wonder, am I dying? And in fact, one of the few times I went to the doctor during my withdrawal process, I worded my reason for the visit to him just like that. I don't need any advice on medications or anything like that anymore. I just want you to do some blood work, make sure I'm not dying. So that's one fear. Another, am I losing my mind? This process comes with a lot of psychological symptoms, whether it be intrusive thoughts, obsessive compulsive tendencies, ruminations, fog, problems with decision making, etc. So you feel sometimes, am I losing my mind? I myself felt stuck in my head, and I felt, this is one way I thought of it to myself. In the course of someone else maybe putting together a few paragraphs of conversation, I felt like my mind had traveled around the universe 3 times. That's how far gone I felt. And then you wonder, okay, how am I going to communicate with others here? And you do start to question your sanity, but again, that fear of actually losing the mind, of breaking, having psychosis, or long-lasting psychological damage, just a fear. The third fear, is this going to last forever? Obviously, for someone like me, for whom the withdrawal process was somewhat protracted, it took a while for me to get over some of these things, to get over these symptoms. I wondered, well, is this permanent? Right? It's been going on for 6 months, for a year, for whatever. Is this permanent? Well, no, it wasn't. It's a process. It's a healing process. And for some people, it's a very incremental and slow process that comes with some ups and downs. But it's a forward-moving process, and one where good things are ultimately happening. So those are the big 3 fears I've talked about before. Today, the 4th fear, and that is this. Have I been set back in some way? Or will I be set back in some way in the future? Right? Because, as I said, there's ups and downs in this process. Maybe some periods where you feel like I got this under control and I'm making some progress here and I can feel it now. I'm getting my feet beneath me. And then all of a sudden you're knocked down. Maybe for a couple hours, maybe for a couple days, maybe for a couple weeks, maybe for a month or more. And you're wondering, what just happened? Have I been permanently set back in some way? Has healing been erased? Or on the flip side, in the future, will I be set back? And you might even be doing good, but you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Thinking, well, this is almost too good to be true. What if something happens in the future and this is all just a mirage or a fantasy? So that's really the 4th fear, the fear regarding setbacks. And in this video, I'll offer maybe just a couple of tips for how to think about that. And the first is this. Don't ever allow yourself to see previous healing as having been erased by something, right? Maybe you'll be thrown for a loop for a period of time. Maybe you'll be knocked down to your knees for a period of time by something that feels like a setback, or that's commonly referred to as a setback. But rather than seeing that as being set back on your timeline of healing, try to just see it as having been put in a place of being forced to pause and recoup for a period of time. One way I conceptualize it is like this. If you're taking a cross-country trip in the car with your family and you're halfway from California to New York, and all of a sudden there's smoke coming out of the hood, you got to pull over onto an off-ramp and maybe go to a service station or whatever. So you don't see that. You don't have to see that as having to turn around and go all the way back to California and start the trip over. You just see it as having to pull into an off-ramp and get a little service and some loving care for a bit, and then you'll be back on your way. And I know that's frustrating for us to have to hit the pause button, and it feels very scary when some symptoms might get kicked up that maybe we haven't had to deal with in a while. But that's one of the biggest things during those periods of time to avoid, is getting hysterical in our own minds about it, or talking negatively to ourselves by saying, well, now all my previous healing's been erased and I've been set back to the start line. Again, try to think of it as not having to start the journey over, but just having to pull off with some patience to the side of the highway for a bit until things get tended to. And that's the second part of this. Make a plan for yourself if you're in a period that feels like being pulled onto the off-ramp for a little service at the station. People do go through these periods of time where you're feeling better and then suddenly you're feeling worse. It could be because of a food or drink sensitivity sometimes. It could be because of a therapy that's maybe too physiologically or psychologically invasive for a sensitive person at that point in time. Could be because of stress. I think most times it is. The body is very, very sensitive to stress as you're working through the healing process. It's an easy stress trigger. Things get blown out of proportion with our reactions to stress. Our resilience isn't quite built up to where it needs to be. And a lot of times I think that's the cause of what feels like these popularly referred to setback periods is stress, whether it's professional or personal or psychological, with things that we're taking in content-wise, or a lot of things converging at once. I think that stress hits a person, and that's really at the heart of things a lot of times. But again, when that happens, make a recovery plan for yourself. Okay, just say in your head, and this can be kind of arbitrary, this number doesn't really mean anything. Well, let's say, okay, I'm going to take 21 days or 30 days, and I accept that for these 21 days or 30 days, I'm probably not going to feel that great. And there's going to be some things that feel scary that maybe I haven't felt in a while because I've been upended and just had some stresses or sensitivities converge upon my situation. But this is what I'm going to do to get myself back on track over the next 21 or 30 days. And then try to accept where you're at, meet yourself where you're at, and follow your plan. And the plan might involve tweaking exercise routines, tweaking job schedules, tweaking diet, tweaking content intake, tweaking goals in different directions for different people, right? Maybe sometimes for some people more exercise is needed. Maybe for some people less or less intense. Maybe for some people you need to get out of the house more as a part of your recovery plan, but for others you need some time to yourself because you've been out and about too much. So whatever it is and whatever you feel you need inherently, whatever your gut's telling you, whatever maybe you talk with your family and come to a decision amongst you, make a plan and tell yourself, this is the plan, I'm going to follow it, and I know that after I get done with another 3 or 4 weeks of this plan, I'm going to be feeling better and getting myself back on track. And again, nothing set in stone about these timelines, but there are ways to keep your mind forward focused so that you're not just always ruminating and asking why and going to the past and thinking you've been set back. I think a lot of times when these periods that are referred to as setback periods happen to a person, you start getting angry at yourself. Start getting frustrated. Like, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong. I'm stupid. I ate the wrong thing. I drank the wrong thing. I planned the wrong thing. I did the wrong activities. And you just start beating yourself up. Well, guess what? These things just happen to anyone who goes through this stuff. I had multiple periods like this for various reasons, right? You have to try to keep yourself steady during such periods. Stay close to God. Lean on the people who support you. Make sure the things you're watching and listening to are uplifting and supportive and encouraging and calming instead of the other way around. Fight back against that urge to go researching symptoms, etc., and timelines and all that stuff every day. You're in a spot where you need to take care of yourself. For whatever reason, things are maybe just a little more intense right now. They're not going to stay that way forever, and your previous healing hasn't been erased. So try to stay steady. Try to make a plan for yourself. Try to speak well for yourself, and then keep moving on forward down your path to healing, because good things will happen that way. My name is Michael Preby. My website's lovelygrind.com. I hope you'll go there, check out information about my coaching, courses, and membership area. I'm so glad you joined me for today's video. I hope you'll keep coming back for more, and I'll keep making them. Until next time, please remember to take care of yourself and your dreams.